Well, it may turn out that the sleeper move is to accumulate as much Icosa as possible, even through the auctions, in order to capitalize on the bounce later. I know
Yeah.
it's not intuitive because I can quote unquote buy it on the market cheaper, but that isn't the whole story, right? There are people who don't have cash necessarily, but have Hedron, and they're more than happy to potentially swap that
Yeah.
for Icosa, by through the HSIs and supporting the system. So, I'll be curious to watch and see how many cycles some of these go through. And I know, like you said, a bunch of them have gone back in. I've started tracking how many cycles um, individual auctions have. Of course, we don't have more than 2 cycles yet for them, but we'll be able to track that over time, and also we can see them in the loan pool. So those are
Right.
2 ways to really track it.
Yeah, I mean, for the people that are staked, they're getting yield at a time that the Icosa staking pool, I mean, it's getting more competitive, but um like we've got pretty good returns, and we'll see like how disinflationary, how quickly things become more disinflationary over time, and how much that payout early at the beginning for staking really has something to show for itself. I know I have more Icosa than I realistically expected because of the yield.
Yeah, I've been pretty mesmerized by the yield that I'm picking up through those pools. Can't help but watch it.
I went ahead early on and made a bunch of separate Hedron accounts, maxed out the 30-day stakes, and I don't regret that so far, just being able to compound that Icosa yield.
Yeah, I didn't quite go that far, but I have my own test that I'm doing with 90 days.
Yeah, I'm looking at my day one Icosa stake with over 100% in Icosa yield, and that I still have 235 days left until I can compound that. According to Dev Huey, I believe 0.5 of the Watsa pool has left. 0.5% of the Watsa pool is no more. Slowly getting better.
Yeah, I don't. I guess I don't understand why some are being liquidated.
Yeah, so some of them haven't been small either. I'm not sure what they're thinking either. I don't know. I mean, they clearly, my day one isn't breaking even in dollar value. It is breaking even in, if you consider $1 worth one Icosa, which is not. I mean, you could argue maybe some people think that's valuable, but people aren't really making money by, not at least directly in that transaction, by ending their NFT, their Watsa NFT. but I'll take it. I'm fine with it.
Maybe the bonus situation changed their strategy.
Yeah, that's possible that it wasn't what they were expecting and that was a deterrent or something. It still doesn't make it profitable. I guess it's not as quickly profitable, and so maybe that time was too much or something.
Is there a way to tell how many of them that were burned were bought on the secondary market like OpenSea or sold to people that didn't know what they were holding?
Yeah, Dev Huey does have he can tell if they've been transferred, but I don't know any that's tracked OpenSea, for example, to see if any of the ones have been sold or have been sold that came from OpenSea, but there have been lots of NFTs that were transferred and then sold. It makes even less sense to me to buy it on OpenSea and then sell it, and then get Icosa out of it because it's in most cases it's been more expensive to get off OpenSea.
Man, I love checking my yield every day. It's such a great little like routine I got going. Pour scotch, count my Icosa.
Yeah, it feels like progress a little bit, like something's happening. At least we're getting more numbers, bigger number of Icosa. I'm curious how much the February 12th or whatever the relatively each HSI day in February is going to affect buy on Icosa if people looking forward to potential yield are going to try to stack up on Icosa before then or not.
Hey, do you guys think it's gonna like? I don't see it being more than like 20% of what's available to be started to be actually started. I don't think there's going to be as much of a rush to start all these auctions as there was on day one. Obviously, expect it to be a little bit less, but
Yeah.
what's you guys' expectation? Do you guys think people are going to go nuts again once these dolphins get released, or what do you think?
Nuts again once the HSIs come available on a lot on one day. Is that what you're asking? Like if a bunch of people bid on that one day, or if it's still slow, it spreads out for over a while.
Yeah, I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of large HSIs coming due on the 14th or whatever day
Yeah,
the second you know the second
right.
cycle starts. So I just don't think there's going to be as much demand going after them as there was on day one. I think that's I don't know. I think
Yeah,
everyone would think that's pretty obvious, but I just didn't. They, I don't know
I could totally
who I
see that.
heard talking about like the Dolphins getting released. Maybe it's Executioner going talking about how the Dolphins will be um, their initial stakes will be releasing on day 180 or whatever, and they'll probably participate. I don't know. I like my My gut is telling me that they'll compound or not unstake at all versus participate in the auction. It'll be a very small percentage of them participating.
Yeah, that's a good point. Just the fact that there could be more Hedron available because the Hedron stakes, some of the bigger Hedron stakes will have ended by then. And will that affect HSI bidding? Will people not restake, for example, and save it for the ability to get Hex? I wonder. I could see that. I do agree too that there might be a little bit less excitement compared to the very first, and larger percentage of them could be spread out. A larger percentage of the HSIs could be spread out over time, which may be valuable. I could see that. I don't know. It's nice having big days
It
where you know
definitely
there's
is. It seems like it's more competitive though when there's a slow drip, you know?
yeah. I think people looking forward to high yield days. I'm wondering, like I said, I'm wondering how much that's going to affect the buy pressure for Icosa. And if we are less, like having less extreme HSI over time, if that affects buy pressure on Icosa. Because if the average yield is similar over time, then there's not necessarily a strong advantage in a particular time frame to buy Icosa potentially.
Yeah, on the flip side of that though, there isn't that sell off after the fact either. Well, I guess if they're staked, they're probably gonna have a lockup period, right? So I don't maybe there wouldn't be a sell off.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll tell you for myself, my own current plan is to leave my seed Icosa stakes in place. And I'll probably continue to compound my Hedron Icosa stakes, so when I get the Icosa from those, and then just continue to restake the Hedron. And then break out, my newly freed Icosa probably into new wallets. It'll probably where that'll go. But I'm moving kind of in slow motion, as always. I'm just kind of thick. I tend to be fixated on what's my passive income look like. So I'm really focusing when I'm looking at the numbers. That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing is saving up a bunch of yield and then putting it in a new Icosa account.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy, dude. Because I know you're around from the beginning of everything as I've been. So the idea that you could potentially, we don't know what all the numbers will work out to be, but you possibly have gotten into this with a few $1,000s in the beginning and be able to generate through a few steps 100% yield per year, growing due to compounding is a pretty interesting proposition. Now, a lot of people go, "Oh, well, I only had $1,000," but yeah, but you know what? $1,000 in the bear might turn out to be $10,000 or $20,000 in passive income as the market goes up, all being compounded with the potential for more. So, it's quite possible there are going to be some people that do very well with this, right? I mean, I guess that's our hope, anyways.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the price appreciates enough that the yield's not even a big deal. I mean, yield we've had such a big percentage of what we're holding, especially for Icosa, it's going to really matter if price increases. That yield's going to have been a big difference. But I'd like to see, pretty big increases in right of just the individual token. We'll see.
Yeah, I think what's deceptive too is that because the system works the way it works, it's deceptive in that it might be okay. I wouldn't say I would just do this with Hedron. It might be okay just to hold Hedron, but it makes sense to stake it because you get the extra Icosa yield. But it definitely does not make any sense to hold Icosa. It makes sense to stake Icosa. And I think that's where the big difference with Icosa will definitely be. I mean, those who figure out how to at least maintain the average compounding will do pretty well.
It'll be interesting to see how things change as the Icosa pool could become more competitive over time. And it'll be easier to have a higher value, but forced to stake for a shorter period of time. It is kind of like nice that, in a sense, the Hedron pool is so competitive because you don't have to stake as long per dollar value. And so your risk, like staking a bunch of accounts for 30 days, like the risk of a price run and missing a price run for 30 days is a little more it's a little bit less risky when you only have to stake for 90 or 30 days.
Can I ask you guys both a question? Actually, two. What your opinion? What your opinion on? I watched Sloth's video earlier today about he was showed a chart on Hex model about how the pool position in the Hedron stake seemed to be more stable and easier to capture and hold on to over time. But it seems to me like that's kind of skewed to the lockup period, and that there's a large amount of dolphins that have yet to be released, and that could become a little more volatile over time. Um, and versus the flip side of it, the Icosa's pool position being more defendable as not only the T-share rate increases, but also the amount of Hedron that was available in the first phase dries up and less becomes, uh, you know, the Hedron rate to Hex HSI, the HSI price of during auction for Hedron starts to decrease pretty fast, and we start to see yield dry up, and the rate of Icosa yield starts to, what that rate of drying up is in terms of yield and what that means for defending your pool position in the Icosa pool. Was that clear? Sorry.
I followed some of what you were saying. I don't have a disagreement. I'm not sure exactly what the question was though.
whether you think it would be the Icosa pool position will be more easily defendable over time versus the Hedron pool position.
Interesting. Like, do you think the pool will be more consistent in Icosa
I
over time?
think there's two factors that determine the Icosa yield, right? So there's the amount of Hedron burned, which we know is going to go down at a pretty fast rate as these bonus stakes end, and the people that had a plethora of it in the beginning start to, you know, spend it all in the first phase and early second, and T-share rate increasing. And we know there's a big jump in early Feb, right? So the yield in Icosa is going to go down. I mean, and the rate at which HSIs are sold back to the platform, right? Those are the pieces that feed us Icosa yield. So,
Interesting.
do you, yeah, what are your thoughts with respect to the defendability of a Hedron pool stake versus an Icosa pool stake within 3 months to 12 months? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like right now, um, Hedron pool is more stable. Like your positions historically changed less than the Icosa pool, but like you're saying, that's because there's been so much Icosa yield. But I think what you're saying is the yield's going to go down for a lot of reasons in Icosa. If we continue to burn Hedron, there's less Hedron available to be burned, which will slow the yield. I don't know what the time frame is for the Icosa staking pool. I think eventually what you're saying at first glance to me could be true, that the Icosa staking pool, because of the continuing difficulty in getting Icosa, is arguably ramping up at a faster rate than the difficulty to get Hedron. It could, in the long run, be the more stable pool, the one where whatever position you have stays a little more consistent. Um, I don't feel like what happened for a while. I think we're going to have, I mean, over the next year, I think we're going to have a good amount of, we'll see, a good amount of Icosa yield relative to the pool size.
It'll start dropping off. The first seed of liquidity from the beginning will be like 7-8 months, and then after like 10 months, like 9.5 months, that's when we might see it fall off a cliff, depending on how much the contract's being interacted with.
That's true. The seed liquidity is a clear additional player, and that's less than a year for
Yeah,
both
totally.
of
We're
the
past that.
seeds.
Yeah, my initial thought was hold my Hedron pool, you know, at all costs. Don't don't unstake. Don't lose my points. Hold it. That'll prove to be the best position. But over time, it seems the more I think about it, we're in the highest Icosa rate of inflation now. It's only going to go down, meaning the Icosa pool, your position needs to be taken now or acquired now versus even if I hold my Hedron in the pool now, you know, what's liquid might dry up, but those wells and those long HSIs could continue, you know, continue
That's
just
kind of
to
where I'm at.
stack it, you know.
Yeah, I'm trying to, you know, my focus has been on keeping my Icosa staking pool position, because it's the one that's inflating the fastest. So if I can capture that inflation, um, it's been a motivating factor to have shorter Hedron staking pool stakes, so I can compound that Icosa yield faster. At least that's what I've been thinking.
It's a lot of work though, because that was kind of the strategy that myself and others were going with. And for the amount of Icosa it takes for we'll say like a 90-day stake, if you're dealing with more than a few thousand Icosa, like for me, if, for instance, like in order for me to do a small compounding strategy of 90-day stakes, I would have had to have made literally over 60 wallets in order to get 90
I know.
big stakes.
Yeah, I'm only doing it with Hedron. I am doing it with Icosa, but they're almost all 270 or greater in the Icosa staking pool. For me, just for this reason you said, it's not worth it to create 60 accounts. But for Hedron, that's the one that I've gone for a little bit. Just created a bunch of Hedron accounts.
Yeah, I abandoned the 90-day thing. I just went with 180. So I've cut that in half. I have I have more wallets than I would like to at 180 day stakes, but I think the compounding factor will pay off in the end.
Yeah, we'll see. I think I have 17 Hedron accounts of various sizes right now.
And that really just comes down to a question of how much actual work, how much clicking do you actually want to put into it, really, right?
Yep. Yeah, I think the last 30 days that was up on my Hedron account for it was 1.1 billion. They were all 1.1 billion accounts. It was 600 and something Icosa, 661 Icosa, I think. That was worth it to me for each of those.
Yeah.
I calculated, but I think we're going to get halfway decent yield today. Probably tomorrow too.
How much did that the 1,200 T-shares Icosa, the HSI, did that get one?
The 10 million HSI, did that one get one?
Yeah.
Yep, it did. It was 130 billion. And then we've got another one in progress right now that's, last I looked, it was 130 billion as well. Just that one HSI is more Hedron burned than a couple days than in a couple days worth of HSIs recently. More than like 5 days.
X model showing 159 billion so far from yesterday. I don't know if that's accurate up to this point, but it's a min.
That's not bad. Total Hedron supply has been around 112 trillion and a half for quite a while, just ranging around 112.6. We're a little under that right now. But we've been holding total supply for the most part for a while.
Yeah, there was really good information, and Crispy pointed out last week that of the like 181,000 HSIs with Hedron bonuses, 3,400 or so of them expire by the 14th of February or sometime in February. So, Hedron's gonna start burning up, or drying up. The supply is gonna start drying up quicker than people think. Quicker than I think it's gonna happen a lot quicker than people are expect.
Yeah, I'm curious how many of the Hedron bonus HSIs or just stakes in general are ending around 2024, as people probably timed their. I have a feeling people weighted their stakes heavily around when they thought the next bull run would be. I could imagine 2025 there being a relatively noticeable difference in inflation for Hedron. Hey, Sweaty.
What's up, y'all?
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm coming home from work right now. Just opening the front door for some dinner here soon.
Nice.
How are you guys?
Good. Any new exciting videos planned?
I think the next one's going to focus on some t-shirts. That seems to be
Nice.
a popular subject that not a lot of people know about. So I'll try
Yeah.
and put my 2 cents in as well.
Cool.
Also, Christmas shopping. There's a lot of that. What about you guys?
Most of the Christmas shopping's done. I still need to find something for my life.
Hope you guys are well. Gotta check that Icosa yield here in the next hour. But I'm gonna go cook some dinner. So I'll catch you guys later.